The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody who's joined us. This is Sarah Chusid from the Illinois Public Health Institute. You are in the right place if you are here for the Safe Routes to School webinar Part 2 Q&A. We will be getting started just about a minute or so after our starting time to give people a chance to sign on. Sometimes it takes people a moment. If you need anything IT-wise or any assistance, feel free to chat Sarah Chusid in the side panel. You'll see a chat box at the very bottom of your side panel for the webinar on the right, and we will assist you. And hello again. Welcome to everyone who is joining us. This is Sarah Chusid from the Illinois Public Health Institute. You have joined the Safe Routes to School webinar series Part 2. I see we have lots of people signing on, so we'll be getting started in just a minute or so to give folks just a little bit more time to join us. The next voice you will hear will be Maggie from the Active Trans team kicking us off. And if you need anything IT-wise, feel free to chat me, Sarah Chusid, using the chat box on the bottom of the right-hand sidebar for this webinar, and I can assist you if you need anything.
Okay, everybody, good morning. Can I get someone from the organizer team to let me know if you can hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Welcome back to those who are returning. If anyone's new, welcome for the first time to our Safe Routes to School webinar series. This is the second of two, where we are going to talk about the Illinois Safe Routes to School program and answer any questions that you might have outstanding about the application process, the eligibility, the types of projects that you might be thinking of applying for, other things. We're excited that we are joined today by representatives from the Illinois Department of Transportation, who can give you some significantly more better informed input than we can. And just to set the table for this, this particular webinar is going to be almost entirely devoted to Q&A. The first webinar, which occurred in August, had the majority of the content and the walkthrough of the application and other details as to how to apply for the money. So this will be mostly interactive, but the first webinar is recorded and online. Go ahead and advance to the next slide, please. So this webinar also will be recorded, just FYI, and it will be available for viewing later. Everyone on the call, except for the organizers, have been muted. I'm sorry? Okay, I heard an echo, sorry. Everyone has been muted from now. When we get to Q&A, we may be able to unmute you as we go. But for the moment, if you have questions, please go ahead and type them into the chat, which is the little bubble on the right-hand side of your screen with the question mark in it. And we'll start queuing those questions up as we approach that portion of the presentation. Go ahead. Just to quickly review, the reason we are here, I'm Melody with the Active Transportation Alliance, and we are joined with our partners, by our partners from the Illinois Public Health Institute. And the two of us are working on a project that is ultimately funded through the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and it is called ISPAN, which stands for the Illinois State Physical Activity and Nutrition Program. So the reason we're able to conduct this webinar today is because we are working on this project. It's as a 5-year initiative to try and implement physically active and nutrition, better nutrition interventions in communities around the state of Illinois. We, Active Transportation Alliance is involved because we are working specifically on the healthy built environment side of things, with the based on the principle that building communities that are more walkable, more bikeable, more transit friendly, and that encourage more physical activity are healthier and better for everyone. Let's go ahead. So as I mentioned just a moment ago, the first webinar was hosted in August, and that recording is available online. We'll get you that link in a few minutes. It was a walkthrough of the guidelines and the application itself. Today is open Q&A with IDOT staff. Go ahead. And I think at this point, I'm turning it over to my colleague, Maggie Sherwinski from the Active Transportation Alliance.
All right, thanks, Mel. So welcome, everyone. We just wanted to do a brief overview of this grant program. And, you know, this is a program that comes every 2 years. It's administered by the Illinois Department of Transportation. And as Melody mentioned, on the line today, we've got John Paris, we have Missy Dateman, and we have Tim Peters from IDOT, who will be helping with answering your questions. But this grant program is for infrastructure projects that improve walking and biking within 2 miles of an elementary or middle school. And just a couple reminders. So the applications are due September 30th, which is a Thursday. The submissions should be electronic this year, so make it a little easier for all of you. And this year, $12 million is available in funding. So before we get started with the Q&A, just a couple of resources for you and a couple of links to check out. So the last webinar we did, this webinar, those recordings will be available at activetrans.org/ITEP. And so that link has information from last year during the ITEP program, which is another great program for funding walking and biking infrastructure. But we're also including all of our Safe Routes to School links and resources on that website as well. So activetrans.org/ITEP. And we're adding all of the questions that have been coming up and responses to that website as well. So you can do a search to see if a question you have might be answered right there. And then just a few, or a link to a community engagement resource we wanted you to be aware of. So we were recently made aware of that the National Center for Safe Routes to School has an online data collection tool. So the website is saferoutesdata.org, and it is a tool that will you have to sign up, but you can use it to collect the parent and student data, and then it will create a nice summary for you with charts. So it's a nice way to summarize this data for your application. So we just wanted to make sure you are all aware of that. There's also a stakeholder interview sheet that has a list of questions that you could ask different stakeholders like principals, students, staff, crossing guards, businesses, elected officials. So that's from IDOT. So we linked that sheet on that activetrans.org/ITEP URL as well. And then also there are checklists for doing a walking or biking audit around a school that is really great for collecting data and engaging more people in what are the issues around a particular school. So community engagement is a really important part of the Safe Routes to School grant program. So just wanted to make sure you're aware of those resources. So with that, we can get started on questions from all of you. We actually have a few questions that have come up in the last couple weeks that we thought we could get started with. And then as we're talking through some of these questions, please add any questions that you have to the chat box. And then I think Melody, if you can, we'll bring up the questions and we'll have John, Missy, and Tim help address those. So a couple questions that have come up though that are perhaps some questions that many of you have. So someone was wondering so the applicant and sponsor, say, are different groups, organizations, agencies, who needs to be GATA compliant in this case? Would it be the sponsor?
Okay, this is John. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Yes. Anything that's GATA related relates to the sponsoring agency. That's the simple answer.
Okay, great. And someone else was wondering about, just for the applicant, which we didn't talk about this last time, but could an applicant be, someone other than a school district, or a local agency? Could it be, for example, a nonprofit?
Yes, it can. The applicant can almost be anybody, but you need to keep in mind that if we have any questions about the application, about the cost estimate, about the project in general, our first contact is going to be with the applicant. So they need to be able to answer any questions about the entire application and project.
All right, thanks. And then another question, which has come up a few times, is just thinking about for the government resolution that's required, do you have any template or an example that communities could refer to as they're putting together a resolution, or applicants?
We really don't, because every local agency has their own format and wording terminology that they use. It's basically a local agency budget item resolution. So what it needs to relay is that the local agency or the sponsoring agency will be responsible for any and all funding that's required to complete the project.
Okay, so it's like committing to the local match or any other costs?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And a couple people have asked if they need a specific dollar amount. We understand that, getting the cost estimate ready and then, council meeting schedules, they don't always match up to be able to give a specific amount. So, I would just recommend that they commit to any funds required of the agency to complete the project.
All right, got it. Another question, so I guess related to the local match, is could So phase 1 engineering, phase 2 engineering is that is not covered by this grant. So that needs to be done before the grant or within 6 months after receiving the award. But could whatever is used to fund the phase 1 and 2 engineering, could that be used to cover the local match in any case?
It can be in some cases, and I'm gonna let Tim answer that part. But they have to remember that this doesn't actually become an awarded federal project until they receive an award letter. So any costs incurred before that cannot be reimbursed. Tim, I know that PE1 and PE2 being used as local match will depend a lot on what funding is being used. But Tim, could you speak more to that?
No, I think you covered it really well, John. If it happened before or in advance of the grant, I don't believe they'll allow that to be applied retroactively.
Okay, so once the grants are announced, then a community does have 6 months around 6 months to complete those phase 1 and phase 2 engineering, and during that time, any money used to cover the engineering costs could potentially be used for the local match at that point?
Could potentially be used. It depends on what, if they're using other state or federal funding, it could or could not be. If it's sponsor funded, I believe they could, yes.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
All right.
So this is Melody. I have one point of clarification. So if a community conducted PE 1 and 2 already put their skin in the game, so to speak, in advance of the award, that would not count. The award, the 20% match has to be contributed after the award has been given?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Another in the queue. Let me know when I should go to the queue.
Oh yeah, I think we have 2 more questions, and then we'll go into the queue. So another question that was coming up from a handful of communities was, I guess a 2-part question was, can more than one school be included in an application as long as the schools are within 2 miles of each other? And then if this is the case, would projects selected need to be within 2 miles of any of those schools, or would one school need to be selected as the base location for and then applying a 2-mile radius around that one school?
You know, this is almost a trick question because I've looked at. I thought, okay, what different scenarios could fit into this question? First of all, there can only be one application per school district. Second, if you choose a school and within that 2-mile radius, there are other schools, you'll want to list those on the application under the impacted schools. Because we'll use information from the Illinois State Board of Education to determine the percentage of low-income students and students with disabilities. That will factor into the score. So we'll want to capture any of the schools within that 2-mile radius. The other part of that question is, if 2 schools are within 2 miles of each other, you could, if there's a small overlap between those 2-mile radiuses, you could have a stretch of 4 miles, almost 4 miles.
Mm-hmm.
I guess technically, if they're in the same district, you could include them as one project, but I would not suggest it.
Okay.
Because of the way we conduct the reviewing and the scoring, I don't think a situation like that would score very well. I would suggest splitting them up. So I would choose one school, do your 2-mile radius, and stick to that.
All right. And then last question before we turn it over to Melody. Can you, I know that you said that you were getting a lot of questions about the tip, and can you just, and how the requirement there related to that. So could you explain how that works?
Yes. In the guidelines, we said that any project chosen would have to be included in the tip if you're in an MPO. And a lot of people said, well, do we have to include it beforehand? No, no. We just need you to know that you need to make contact with your MPO if you're in an MPO area. Make them aware that you're submitting an application so that if it's awarded, they will be prepared to include that project in their tip.
All right, great. Mel, do you want to go ahead and get to the questions?
Let's do it. Okay, so let's start with a funding question. There was a question just to verify that the $250,000 max can count as 80% of the project, and the 20% could be added on top of that for a total project cost, for example, of $312,500. That is okay?
Yes, yes. The maximum federal funding is $250,000.
Okay, great.
That does not include the match.
Gotcha. Another question or another comment is that someone is unable to download the GATTR program risk assessment on the IDOT Safe Routes to School website. Is there any information or suggestions you could make for that, or maybe check on it?
I think, who was it? I think Melody, was it Melody or Maggie? One of you yesterday sent me an email and told me that has to be downloaded in order to be completed. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what we were troubleshooting that with another community. And if you download that item, there's some option there. Just ignore the warning message you get, download it, and then you should be able to see the file. And then I think there was another GATA document where you just had to, there was a warning message and you just have to say like, it's okay, go to IDOT's webpage, and then you'll see the document.
Yeah, and if anybody has any difficulties, they can shoot us an email at dot.saferoutes@illinois.gov.
Will do.
We'll help you figure it out.
Perfect. For project concurrence, if you are in the CMAP region, is it okay to get a concurrence letter from the local council of governments versus from CMAP directly?
I believe, yeah, that would be fine. Yeah.
Great. Okay, now we have a question on NEPA. The question is, what projects are considered categorical exclusions? And in other words, which ones would require the phase 1 design approval?
For the most part, all Safe Routes projects are eligible for the categorical exclusion. What we do is we send a list of awarded projects to our Department of Design and Environment, and they look at them, and we normally get a categorical exclusion across the entire list. If you think that that could be an issue for your project, I would talk to your local IDOT district, local roads office, and they could help with that.
Okay, great. Next question is about phase 3 engineering, construction engineering. Can this grant pay for that?
Yes.
Great. Next question. About the online and data collection that is to be used to gather the school data that can be sent to parents and students. can it be sent directly to parents and students by school districts, or is it a tool specifically just for the sponsoring agency to fill in later? Maggie, do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, so I believe it can be used like to collect that information. Something can be sent out to parents and students, but I haven't used it personally. We just had a planner we work with, Cynthia Hoyle, said that she uses it to collect data. But if that's not working for you, if it's a more challenging tool than you're expecting, or it doesn't do what you need it to do, we do have some Google Forms that we created that I can share with you. So then you could just send that directly to students and parents and teachers. So you can, if you're interested in the Google Form route, you can email me, maggie@activetrans.org, and I can get you set up with that.
This is Heather. I can jump in quickly too on the survey questions. So in the past, when I've done the parent surveys and used the national centers input, it usually the turnaround's a little bit longer. It's usually like 6 weeks. So they might not be able to process the data that you collect before your application is due. So I just wanted to point that out, that it might not be an option right now.
Yeah, it's an excellent point.
All right, so the Google form might be the best option if you need to collect data online. So I can, whoever is interested in using that, I'll just email me and I can get you that form.
The links. Yeah, we'll we'll include that in our follow-up to this webinar too. Question, what is does anybody know the maximum file size that can be uploaded as attachments?
No, I don't.
Usually it's 10 megabytes.
Okay.
If it's an email.
And if it is too large, we did put our large file transfer link in the guidelines and on our webpage.
Okay. Secure file link, file transfer link. Okay. Just a confirmation that the match funds can be used both for design engineering and can be counted as match money if the money is allocated after award is made.
If it's expended after the award date.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Excellent.
And the award, and just to be clear, the award date is the date of the award letter that goes out. So after the awards, after we've decided on the awards and stuff, there will be an announcement, and within probably about a week or so, there will be an award letter sent out, and that is the date.
Got it. So wait for the award letter, but you don't have to wait for the next to proceed, right?
Right.
Okay. Next question. Is a full phase 1 study required, or just, oh, I think we already covered this, for category, or just category exclusions. For phase 2, are full construction plans required for sidewalk projects, or can it be bid booklet form with standard details and project limits similar to an MFT resurfacing project?
That's a Tim question.
I would say generally sidewalks should be fully, the plan should be complete. I think it would be obviously depend on if it's a small section of sidewalk, maybe standard details could be used, but for the most part, if it's because of the ADA issues involved and stuff, I would say generally yes, but you could check with your district and see if they would agree that it's, in your case, it could be an exception, but if there's any length of sidewalk involved, then complexity, crossing multiple streets or involving multiple sidewalks, I would think full plans would be normally required.
Great. Okay, let's see here. Another question about costs, construction costs in phase 3 engineering. Okay, I just read that one, sorry. Next question, if the engineer's estimate is based on more of a windshield estimate and not actual surveying, but then the engineering is completed and, wait, okay, sorry, let me start over again. If the engineer's estimate is based on more of a windshield estimate and not actual surveying data, and engineering completed, and it is believed 10 blocks could be covered at the maximum amount, but after actual surveying and engineering, only 8 blocks can be funded with the maximum amount, can the project be shortened to fit within funds received? And is the reverse true?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Once complete engineering is done and there's a more accurate cost estimate, then we can work with you to either increase or decrease the scope of work.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm typing and reading at the same time. Apologies. Can be increased or decreased based on actual cost estimate. Okay. Next question.
Hey, Melody.
Yes.
I'm also taking notes, so if it helps, you can be off the hook for that one.
I'm just typing answers directly into the answer box for each question.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Both phase 1 and phase 2 engineering need to be completed within 6 months of the grant award, or does just phase 1 need to be completed within 6 months of the project award?
We would prefer that both are. And this question has been asked several times. The 6 month, you'll notice in the guidelines it said should be completed in 6 months. There's wiggle room there. The most important deadline is to get all the funds obligated at the 18-month mark.
Got it. Next question, I think we already answered this one, but if you have 2 eligible schools that share a campus, separate buildings but same campus, should you just choose one of the schools because the 2-mile radius will be essentially the same? So just pick one?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. All right. Here's a comment that the GATA uniform grant application form still has ITEP info in the state part of the form. Not sure if that needs to be updated or.
Yeah, it has been updated and we will look at that again.
Okay.
The correct numbers for safe routes were included on the last webinar on one of the screens from the last webinar.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
we can send it out in our follow-up email, all of those numbers.
We'll dig that up.
Okay. Okay, and we'll try to get that updated again.
Right. Question from Carlos. Yes, you heard correctly, Carlos, that there's only one application per school district, not per school. So, you know, if you've got 5 schools in the district, identify which school needs the most help and pick that one. Okay, next question. Oops, jumped on me. City will be ready to start the project as soon as the funding is awarded. What should be the proposed project term on a uniform grant application? If the city is ready, will be ready to start the project as soon as funding is awarded.
I'm not sure what he means by term.
So Allie, that question is from you. If you want to clarify that question, is anybody able to unmute Allie Brayboy? And maybe Allie could be more specific about what you're asking. In the meantime, I'm going to go on to another one. Let's see. Okay, the design engineering that's counted as match money that happens after the award. Does the engineering being hired have to go through procurement procedures?
Tim?
Yes. Since it's federal funds, if federal funds are paying for the engineer, it either has to be handled as a federal small procurement. If it's less than approximately $40,000, if it's more than $40,000, it has to go through a federally compliant QBS process.
Thank you, Tim. Next question. It's federal funding, is the project let through IDOT or local? I believe you have your choice. Isn't that correct?
Yes, talk to your district and they will help you figure that out.
Great. Okay, one more asking for confirmation. Just wanted to confirm that Stephanie heard this correctly. Preliminary engineering costs can be used toward the local match if these costs are incurred after the award letter for the grant is received, even though it states on the 2021 funding guideline document that PE and ROW costs will not be funded as part of the project. I think that's correct. Stephanie, what they're saying is that you can't use the grant money cannot go toward PE or right away. Is that correct, John?
That is correct.
Great. Here's another question. Can additional work like resurfacing be added within the Safe Routes to School project using MFT or local funds? If it's on a state letting, how is the additional non-federal funds program, district or central? So that's two questions.
And that's a Tim question.
Yeah. Okay.
I would think that they would normally be handled as kind of a separate section, not let and program together. But I would say work with your district on that. They may be able to split those costs out, but typically I wouldn't think this would be done. You may time it with a resurfacing project or something, but and coordinate the two projects. But I would suggest working with your district on the specifics of how you would do that.
Sounds good. Okay, we're getting this question again. Please clarify one more time. Can the grant funds be used for phase 1 and phase 2 engineering if it's done after the actual award?
No.
No. Yeah, the answer is they can be used to count toward your match, but they cannot be used to fund it.
Right.
And John and Tim, just to clarify, so phase 1 and phase 2 engineering could potentially be used for your local match, but is it in all cases? Is it only in certain cases?
It could, well, most of it will depend on what type of funding you're using to pay for your PE 1 and 2. For instance, it can't be counted towards local match if it's another federal transportation fund.
But if it's so if it's local funds, it could.
If the sponsor is, yes. If the sponsor is paying for PE 1 and 2 within that after the award letter, then yes, that could be used to count towards your local match.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Okay. I do not see any additional questions. Jim Cummings, I think we just answered that question. If ineligible costs that are ineligible for grant funding are incurred after the grant award, if preliminary design, PE 1 and 2, they can be counted toward the match. Yep.
Possibly, yes.
Possibly, yes. If not paid for with federal funds.
If not paid for with federal transportation funds.
Federal transportation funds, yes, thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Terrence, we're going to send along.
It gets a little hairy with different types of funding.
Right. And Terrence, we will send along the link to the Google Forms.
And just a note with the Google Forms, so I'll need to know who specifically wants to use that, because we'll have to make a copy of the Google form in your own account. So that's why you'll just be working with me if you want to use those Google Forms.
Ah, thanks, Maggie.
Yeah.
Yeah, we won't be giving you a link on our own that's hosted on our own Google account. You'll need to copy the form and paste it into your own Google account. So Jim, PE 1 and 2 are ineligible. Phase 3, we answered this just a few minutes ago, I think. Construction engineering is eligible for grant funding to be included in the cost.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's give it another minute or two here for any lagging questions. And otherwise, you will, again, give you another 45 minutes or so of your day back. Any closing words of wisdom from our friends at IDOT?
It sounds like the questions are becoming more specific, obviously, because people are working on their applications. So, feel free to shoot us an email. It's dot.saferoutes@illinois.gov. If you have GATA questions, that is dot.gata@illinois.gov.
Yep. Okay. Final call for questions. Okay, here's one additional questions come in. Where does the ceiling of small purchase for $40,000 come from? 2 CFR 200 doesn't say that. It's 250,000 in the CFR. Please clarify.
This is Tim. The requirement for that is the lower of the state's limit, and I believe it's 150,000 for purchase of engineering. But it's the state's law related to QBS that drives that number.
Thank you, Tim. All right, last call for questions, going once, twice. Okay, we're going to close it out. And of course, you always have an opportunity to ask questions later, sending the emails to the 2 email addresses provided on screen. And we want to thank everybody for joining us. This has been terrific. And special thanks to IDOT. I think this, for at least the communities that Active Trans works with, we have heard that this is an extremely helpful opportunity to just have a moment in time where everybody's in the same place and the same availability to just answer questions live. So we're really grateful for your availability, IDOT.
Oh, did we get back to Allie's question?
Let's see. Oh, was Allie, let's see. What was Allie's question? Oh, Allie, I don't know if we did. the city will be ready to start the funding. If the city is ready to start the project as soon as the funding is awarded, what should the proposed project term on the uniform grant application be?
Allie, go ahead and send me an email and I will look that up for you.
Perfect. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.